My name is Emily Bridges. I am here tonight on behalf of the Advancement Board here, in town from Atlanta, and wanted to welcome you all to the Fraser Lecture Series. So thank you all for coming. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I wanted to take a moment just to tell you a little bit about the Advancement Board. Can I have anyone in the board or on the board raise their hand, just so you all see who's here? The Advancement Board is comprised of about 40 people all across the real estate and development industry. So, students, if you have not reached out to the Advancement Board yet, they are a captive audience to support you. That is one of their main goals of being on the board. We really have three goals. We want to get you all hired, internships and full-time placement. Intellectual capital, how are we supporting the curriculum and how is that translating to real-world experience? And then finally, raising and contributing funds, right? It's all about the dollars at the end of the day sometimes. So we are here to support that. And I want to bring up Dr. Reed, but just wanted to say hello, and again, thanks for having us, and looking forward to a good evening. Woo!
Good evening, everyone. I think we've got our AV issue sorted out, so thank you all for being here. Welcome to the kickoff for our spring ABRED meeting and for the 2022 installment of the Charles Fraser Lecture Series. As Emily said, my name is Dustin Reed. I'm the incoming director of the ABRED program. Really glad to welcome you and really excited to introduce our guest speaker. Many of you have been to a Charles Fraser Lecture Series before. This is my first one. So I was doing a little research to prepare for tonight, and one of the statements about the Charles Fraser Lecture Series that jumped out at me is it's designed to recognize people not only for the excellence in the development of places, but also for excellence in the development of people. And there's very few people in our world that have excelled at the latter more so than Dr. Robert Benedict. So I was very, very pleased when one of our advisory board members suggested that he serve as this year's speaker. I've only been at Clemson for about 8 months now. My family and I moved down in August, and I can't tell you the number of people that have already come up to me and expressed the impact that Robert's had on their lives in some way or the other. And I thought that would be largely limited to students and alumni and real estate practitioners, but the woman I bought my house from knew Robert and could went on and on about what a wonderful guy is and what a wonderful scholar and what a wonderful member of the community is. The guy at the liquor store. What a wonderful man he is, and how much fun he is to be around. So, and these are 100% true stories. I wish I could make them up. But so anyway, everywhere I go, I have somebody tell me what a privilege it is for me to have the opportunity to work with Robert, and I certainly echo that. So tonight, I'm really excited to call him a colleague, and as he heads into his retirement at the end of this academic year, I'm really honored to have the opportunity to introduce him as a speaker. Before joining Clemson and joining the Academy, Dr. Benedict worked as an investment manager with Travelers Insurance Company, a development partner with Carolina Holdings, and as a historic preservation consultant. He brought that invaluable professional experience to the classroom in 2006 and has been with us for nearly 2 decades. Over that course of time, He's done multiple tours of duty as the program director, which many of you know. And on top of that, this actually floors me as somebody that teaches for a living. He's taught, I think, nearly every course in our curriculum at some time or another, which is extraordinary range and speaks to his experience and knowledge as both a professional and as an academic. Today, I can tell you this unequivocally, that the program is fundamentally different because of his involvement, and his impact is going to last way beyond his days at the podium. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Robert Benedict.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Dustin. This is challenging. It's St. Patrick's Day. The NCAA basketball tournament is underway. Started today. Of course, we have first round right over there at the Bon Secours Wellness Center. And students, as tempting as it is, please don't take out your phones and check those brackets. Where's Cameron? I know North Carolina's playing right now. So, a short story. It's funny now, but really wasn't that funny at the time. It was a day much like today, and the provost came over, and he wanted to get a tour of one and learn more about the MRED program. So we're walking him around, and we take him into a classroom that we have upstairs on the 7th floor. It's called the Beehive. Well, the Beehive is kind of an octagonal-shaped classroom with multiple monitors all around the wall. And we walk in, and there's about 8 or 9 students in there. Every monitor is on the NCAA basketball tournament. So one of the students says, well, we're working on our assignments. We're really working on this right now. Well, you'd have to know the provost. He's very stoic, and he kind of cracked a slight smile, and he said, well, I hope you do well on your assignment, and I hope you also do well in your brackets. So he had a sense of humor about it. We've got all these stories and more. Yikes. As some of you know, I'm currently working on a paper that will hopefully be a publication of the Fraser Lecture Series, all of our speeches since 2007 when we started this. Back in Terry Ferris actually started it. Along with Amy's help and a graduate assistant, we are in the process of transcribing and editing each of these speeches. And over the years, the Fraser Lecture Series has featured prominent speakers, the likes of Harry Frampton, Jim Chafin, Peter Rummel, Ron Twilliger, all past chairmen of the Urban Land Institute, and many others like Diana Permar, David Rawl, Frank Brumley, Vince Graham, Tom Webb, all of whom have had a tremendous impact on the real estate profession. So I wrote an article in 2016 for the Upstate Business Journal. This was following David Rawls' talk, and it was titled, Why Charles Fraser Matters. Well, I'm going to come back to this and talk a lot more about it, but Charles Fraser is still relevant today, and this lecture series is also still very relevant. And I want to thank the Advancement Board especially for supporting it over these years. So really appreciate all the directors, what you've done to help with this. There's several folks I would like to recognize, starting with my wife, Judy, and our older daughter, Alexis. Alexis is home from grad school at Texas A&M. I'd also like to recognize Tommy Baston tonight. Tommy is another prominent individual who worked for Charles Fraser, then went on to make a significant impact with Crescent communities, especially with Palmetto Bluff and other Crescent communities. Tommy recently passed away, which was a big loss. He was scheduled to be the Fraser Lecture Series in 2020. Unfortunately, we were forced to cancel his speech because of COVID. And his son Andrew went through our program. He's an alum. He was also a former ABRED director. So I just wanted to recognize Tommy, and I was thinking of him as I was preparing for this. So, reflections and remarkable people, and this is all kind of weaved in together. My story begins in Charlotte, where I was born. My father was a World War II veteran. My mother was a nurse, a nursing supervisor who seemed to always work the 3 to 11 shift at what used to be Charlotte Memorial Hospital. My father was from Sioux City, Iowa. Because of the Depression and then the war, he dropped out of Iowa State where he studied art. For the rest of his life, because he got passed over for promotions and such, for the rest of his life he would always, his mantra was, get as much education as you can. They can never take it away from you. Well, my sister and I must have been brainwashed and indoctrinated by him because we both felt compelled to go on that and go down that crazy path to obtain our PhDs. Russell, you like that? When my dad returned from Europe after the war, he worked for Sears Roebuck as an advertising and merchandising manager. My parents moved from Chattanooga to Jacksonville to Little Rock, Arkansas, and then to Charlotte. Whenever a new Sears store opened in the southeast, my dad would relocate to that city for months to merchandise it and start an advertising campaign. As you can imagine, my mother and my older sister became very weary of this, and when they moved to Charlotte, my father had his epiphany. Charlotte was a good place to put down roots. This was the days of Ozzie and Harriet, Leave It to Beaver, all those wonderful early 60s, late 50s shows, and Charlotte was very much like that. We lived in a suburban community near South Park Mall, really near Park Road Shopping Center Mall, or shopping center. And during my high school days and college days, I worked construction in the summer for John Crosland and some other builders. This was my first experience with these larger-than-life figures. Okay. My most interesting experience was I drove a truck for the team. Well, the team was 3 other guys, all minorities. But these were men that taught me some great lessons in life. Collectively, they probably had about 5 years of education between them. So we had fascinating discussions, such as the impossibility of man being on the moon. They doubted the media as much as many of us do today. And they really couldn't read or write. You know, a few of them knew they could do some basic reading. But, you know, we're driving this truck. I'm the kid, and we're trying to find these job sites and go all over Charlotte. And these were the days before GPS, so they couldn't read maps, nor street signs. But it was amazing because they knew landmarks such as distinctive buildings, trees, bridges. They were sort of like the Catawba Indians, who were the original settlers of Mecklenburg County. But most importantly, they taught me respect and showed me a work ethic that I still treasure today. They also motivated me immensely to finish college. So after my days at UNC Charlotte and then the University of Georgia, where I got my MBA, I came back to Charlotte. And I was interviewing for a surety bond analyst position at the Travelers Insurance Company. And as I was starting to leave, Johnny Atkinson, he was the personnel manager. I remember him vividly. He said, you know, we have this guy who works up on the 15th floor by himself. I really don't know what he does, but it has something to do with real estate. Would you like to meet him? Well, all kinds of thoughts are racing through my head. Did they put this guy up there because he can't get along with the others? is this a think tank where this guy is the man behind the curtain? Well, having nothing to lose, and probably because Johnny Atkinson knew I wasn't the right guy for the surety bond analyst position, I agreed to go up and meet this mystery man. So we got off the elevator, and there he was, seated at a desk on an otherwise empty floor with these large spreadsheets all out in front of him, and books titled Elwood Tables. Dave, you remember those? You had to look everything up on the table. We didn't have calculators, certainly didn't have computers. So the gentleman, and many of you know him, was Mike McNicholas. And he hired me as a real estate assistant for the Travelers. And this was the era, like the cartoon shows. In fact, I need to move so y'all can see this. This was the era of 17 and 18% interest rates, believe it or not. This is Mike. Mike became my mentor. And even to the point where I have followed him to 3 different positions. And he was also an ABRED director. He was the founder and president of Carolina Holdings, which I'll talk about more later. Okay. So Mike left the Travelers. I stayed on, and we were doing a lot of work in major markets up and down the East Coast. Travelers transferred me from Charlotte to Atlanta. Then ultimately they transferred me to Washington, D.C. And uncharacteristically for us, we were real attracted to a joint venture proposal here in Greenville with a company called U.S. Shelter. Okay. We did a joint venture with U.S. Shelter, and here's a very interesting photograph from the groundbreaking. Okay. Now, if you look at it, you'll see the governor of South Carolina, Dick Riley. Okay. Dick Riley was also a future cabinet member under the Clinton administration as Secretary of Education. You'll also see Congressman Carroll Campbell over there, Barton Tuck, who founded U.S. Shelter, and you can't see him, but Buck Mickle with Daniel Construction was there. And you'll see in the lower left, Mary McNicholas and I sharing a laugh as we got away from the festivities. Now that's how you do a groundbreaking. So my time at the Travelers afforded me the opportunities to meet with such folks as Johnny Harris, Smokey Bissell, Henry Faison, Fred Klein, and Peter Pappas, who became a good friend and worked for Smokey and Johnny in Charlotte. Then in Atlanta, when I was transferred to Atlanta, I had an opportunity to meet other icons like Mac Taylor of Taylor Mathis, Don Childress, who was with Trammell Crow in Atlanta, who did the Galleria, and then later went to Charlotte. Post Properties, John Williams and John Glover. Actually went backpacking with John Glover, Cumberland Island. Same in Washington, D.C. We were financing projects and arranging joint ventures with the likes of Hilton Hotels, Marriott, and many others. I have always stressed to the students, and I'll remind them of this today, starting your career on the institutional side of real estate is a great way to go. You are exposed to many types of real estate, and you get to rub elbows with some very, very prominent individuals. Well, the Travelers decided that I was doing so well, I needed to be in Hartford, Connecticut. I had been to Hartford a number of times, and it wasn't exactly a garden spot, especially in the 80s. So I decided I'd rather go south. Mike McNicholas said, well, why don't you come on down to a company called U.S. Shelter, which was the groundbreaking you saw. I joined Mike at U.S. Shelter. I spent 4 wonderful years there developing apartments primarily in Florida, which was challenging, but a very lucrative time in places like Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, West Palm Beach, Jacksonville, and other cities. Unfortunately, a little bill was passed, tax reform of 1987. Now, U.S. Shelter was primarily a major real estate syndication firm. And the tax reform bill of 1987 completely wiped out the syndication business for U.S. Shelter. Shelter was sold to Andrew Farkas, who changed not only the name to Insignia, but also the culture. My wife Judy was a financial analyst in the syndication group with U.S. Shelter, and she lost her position. And you know, it wasn't exactly the happiest of times, but I was fortunate to land at Carolina Holdings. So I spent 13 and a half years with Carolina Holdings and learned how to develop other asset classes, primarily retail and then infill housing. The 1990s and the 2000s were largely good years, although September the 11th, 2001 was a real shock to the world and the real estate markets, much like what we've been experiencing with the COVID pandemic. Unexpected, crazy events, as we all know, can come out of nowhere, and it's why we make an emphasis in the program for the students to really follow global trends and events. Okay. As we entered 2006, I was becoming increasingly nervous as the sales of our most recent infill housing project suddenly seemed to slow. And this was a well-located project off of Augusta Road. But it was noticeable, and it was obvious that there was a lot in the press. You know, is there a housing bubble on the horizon? I had no idea it would wind up being as bad as it did, but I was worried. Furthermore, I was tired of traveling extensively and signing personal guarantees. So in 1997, while at Carolina Holdings, I finally completed my Master in Historic Preservation. And I started teaching part-time at UGA, teaching preservation economics. Okay. I found that I enjoyed it and thought this might be a good transition one day. Meanwhile, I met a gentleman named Terry Ferris. Well, Terry had just started a Master of Real Estate Development program. This was 2004. And I thought, wow, this is really a great idea, and frankly, I would have loved to have gone through such a program. I met Terry, talked to him about the possibility of teaching in the MRED program. Terry said that if I really want to make a transition to academia, then there's this wonderful new Ph.D. program. It's interdisciplinary, and it was really the one way you could stay in academia. You got a Ph.D. So in addition to teaching under Terry, which I was fortunate to do while I was first a Ph.D. student, and then the years later, I also met another individual, Dr. Barry Knox. Barry became my dissertation advisor, and I knew that I really liked him when he suggested we have our meetings about my dissertation progress, or lack thereof, on stationary bicycles at the Life Center. Now, someone smarter than me would have said, I'm not sure that's a good idea. So depending upon how I was doing, those sessions could be marathon sessions with the friction really ramped up, or it could be a short session. But seriously, Clemson has been very, very fortunate to have had two class guys with a willingness to help a non-traditional Ph.D. student like me, and they're fortunate to have such remarkable professors like Terry and Barry. So being a part of the MRED program and watching it grow has been an exhilarating experience. Teaching and working with graduate students over the past 16 years has truly been a blessing. The alumni and the current students are very bright and talented. I love their creativity, and it's been, for me, a tremendous experience. The most gratifying aspect has been following the success of our alumni. For example, this slide, both slides that you see, the one on your right shows Laura Stoner, Reggie Wallace. Both are highly successful. I love seeing them on the advancement board, as I do with the slide on the left with Ron Stewart, also an advancement board director. Bob, your daughter Helen, and of course Scott Puffer, who also graduated in the early years. I think he was 2008. So the early years with the MRED program were exciting, and the program gained national prominence. Terry did a fantastic job with this. We were featured in Urban Land twice, and our alumni base started to grow. This was also when we were still on the main campus in overcrowded Lee Hall. Well, Lee Hall was about to start an expansion, and we needed additional studio space for our practicums. And Terry said, I got it. I'm going to lease space in this retail center on Highway 123. It was Jessica, you remember this. It was So I would say that retail center, it was probably class B- at best. And the space was a former pet shop. And next door was a Mexican restaurant, so you had these great aromas all the time. It was like having space in a third world call center. After a couple of years in that space, Bill, you remember those days? So after a couple of years in that space, we had trailers set up in the Lee Hall parking lot for classes and the practicums. That kind of reminded me of high school. When our high school grew so fast, we had to set up trailers outside. But that worked out pretty well. So in 2012, we were approached by John Boyette and Laura Stoner with the Clemson Real Estate and Land Stewardship Foundation. And they inquired about our interest in joining other graduate business programs in Greenville. So being a joint program between the College of Business and the College of Architecture, that door was cracked, and I ran through it. I had a lot of help, guys like Russ Campbell, Chris Pierce, like you see on the far right with Mark Miller, John Whitaker, Dan Patello, and many, many others. Many of our students were already living in Greenville, and the move would help us in many, many ways. It increased our geographical diversity, and it made it easier to keep adjunct instructors and strengthen our ties to city leaders like Nancy Whitworth, Knox White, and many others. In effect, it put us in a living lab surrounded by all these developments that had an MRED connection. We first moved into the former Bowater building, which you see on your left, and then we moved into this fantastic space. Okay. I still have to pinch myself that we're in such a phenomenal academic setting. It also changed the culture of our program, where instead of shorts and t-shirts, our students now dressed professionally and rubbed elbows on the elevators with attorneys, bankers, and folks like Bob Hughes and Joe Irwin. Justin, you remember those days? Where's Justin? Early days, first class. So, to give you a little background on the second move from the Bowater building to Clemson 1, Bob Hughes was very generous with offering a below-market sale to the Clemson Real Estate Foundation. And today there's approximately 71,000 square feet housing the MRED program, all the different MBA programs, the Master of Accountancy, and other programs and centers. Okay. Our trips to the ULI fall meetings were also a lot of fun. My first trip with the students was to San Francisco, followed by Denver, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., New York, Chicago, Dallas. I do recall a couple classes that had trouble making it to the ULI sessions. And this became rather problematic. In San Francisco, one group of students decided to ride bikes all day, including over the Golden Gate Bridge into Sausalito. Then in Los Angeles, it was worse. Los Angeles, same problem occurred, but we had some that never even made it to a single ULI session. I was ready to strangle some of them. And I asked one, I said, why? Why? Well, the lure of Santa Monica Beach, man, is really good. Oh, but great times, like you can see here on the left. And on the right, John McNellis has kind of developed kind of a cult following. We read his book, How to Make It in Real Estate, and you can see these students were just ecstatic to meet John McNellis at ULI setting. So this is what's unique about the Clemson Inroad program. I mean, we've also made many, many trips to memorable places, memorable events, Atlanta, Charlotte, Nashville. I mean, we're in a great location where it's easy for us to visit all these different markets throughout the Southeast. Okay. Our ABED directors have always been very gracious with their time helping us set up these trips and hosting tours. It's a big part of the experiential learning experience that takes place where we get the students out of the classroom where they see and hear about major developments. One of my most memorable moments was in Atlanta a few years back when CNN decided they wanted to interview Andrew Baston. And I just laughed when I found this the other day. I'm looking at the reactions of some of the students. Tyler Lusk is saying to Matt Cross, "Can you believe they're interviewing Andrew?" This was especially true with our coastal development field study, better known as Mini-Mester. The Charleston, Savannah, Hilton Head, and Kiowa Island markets are dynamic markets in themselves, but they're also very, very different from what we see with our shorter trips along the I-85 corridor. The Mini-Mester trip offers the students an opportunity to see firsthand what the Savannah and Charleston ports mean to the economy. They visit a number of major industrial developments. They also see everything from successful affordable housing projects, vibrant coastal communities, historic adaptive use projects, and hear about the complexities of large developments such as Daniel Island and Nexton. None of our peer programs can even come close to providing that kind of experience. I also have great memories of our community service projects, what they meant to the nonprofit we were helping, like the Salvation Army in this picture. They were also meaningful to the students as they learned so much about the struggles of others. Great memories again. Kate, remember these days? I don't know if Darren Pellegrin's here, but yeah, somebody else is on the board. John Roberson's on the board now. Habitat for Humanity. Okay. So this leads me back to Charles Fraser and Hilton Head, where it all started. Charles Fraser and Hilton Head truly are still relevant today. Per David Rawl, again the 2016 Fraser speaker, said, "Remember Charles Fraser for his curiosity, his commitment to do best practices, and how places live." This is what Dustin alluded to, not just how they look. Follow Fraser's dedication to philanthropy, environmental responsibility, the vital importance to creativity, and his commitment to always making a difference. That is well stated. Meanwhile, Peter Rummel, a protege of Charles Fraser, and also a former ULI chairman who wound up leading Disney's Imagineering company, Peter Rummel said, these are lessons he learned from Charles Fraser, surround yourself with the best and brightest to balance your work culture. Education and credentials can be more important than previous work experience. Okay? Think about that. Okay? Experience can narrow your thinking, and that it would put blinders on you and make you less adventuresome. So that's a pretty bold departure, especially in the era of, remember the series on Netflix, Mad Men? You know? However, there's been some challenges along the way. Hopefully, we're not going to have to endure masking the way we did with COVID, Zoom classes. It was very tough on the students, staff, and faculty. We continue to have the challenge today of no faculty lines that are absorbed by the college. We are solely dependent upon tuition revenue, and we get very, very limited help from the college. It's also a much more competitive market than it was years ago. Seems like there's new graduate real estate programs popping up every year. You know, it's especially interesting to see how similar so many of these programs are to ours in terms of their curriculum. And oh yeah, they're very complimentary when we see them at conferences, but they're coming after the same students we are. It's like football recruiting. It can be pretty vicious sometimes. As I've stated before, our biggest competition is really not the peer programs, though. It's the job market. When it's strong like today, it is so much harder for prospective students to leave a current position to go back to graduate school, especially if they believe they should ride that horse one more lap around the track before there's an economic downturn. Okay? So looking ahead, the MRED program is very fortunate to have Dustin Reed as the director and have Dr. Stephen Buckman with him. It's in great hands going forward. And I honestly believe the best is yet to come. But at the same time, there's a number of things I'm going to miss. Starting with seeing those moments where the students get it. This image on the left is from Atlanta, Georgia. And it's like, many of them, it was like, wow, this market really is a very dynamic, very dense market. Okay. The close relationships, because we have such a small cohort with each class, it's enabled us to become very close to the students. It's also become much easier for the students to become very close to each other. I love the fact that instead of just cutthroat competition, like some of which I saw in the MBA program when I went through it at Georgia, the students share a true willingness to help each other, make sure they all can help. They each have different strengths. The financial analyst, you ought to see them when they first start taking Dan Ford's site plan class. Is Dan still here? I mean, the financial wizards are just terrified. They actually have to draw a site plan. So those with design backgrounds are really good, helping the financial quants learn how to do site plans and be artistic. Then at the same time, you know, those that come from engineering, design backgrounds, we've had disciplines as diverse as healthcare, education, it runs the gamut. And for them to take their first finance course, oh man, their eyes glaze over. But the financial wizards say, oh, it's okay, you help me, I'm going to help you, we'll get through this. Okay. So remarkable people. I will miss the small gatherings with influential people. Okay. Hearing them on panels, in smaller groups, like the Coffee with an A-Bread Director sessions. Russ, I couldn't resist. Russ, I especially enjoyed hearing how you evicted future Hall of Famer Chipper Jones from an apartment, or when Donald Trump hung up on you. True stories. And learning from our A-Bread directors. You know, Kate, Ellen, again, you guys were great students. Now I love seeing you on the advancement board. Okay, fond memories. Photo on the left, Nancy, as with so many other advancement directors, y'all were great panelists. You always gave great advice, and I'm going to miss that. The trips we took, in addition to Dave always put so much work into the Charlotte trips, organizing them, and they've always been phenomenal. The same is true in Atlanta, where John Whitaker, Dan Patello, Kate, Kyle Evans, thank you, Kyle, John Roberson, and Emily, thank you. Y'all have also been fantastic helping us with our tours. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to miss the site visits, the generosity of our supporters to always spend time with us. Dave, there you are front and center. And you can tell the students have really enjoyed what you've done on the Charlotte trip. Okay. These pictures are great. I love them. So other supporters too. Bob, here you are. This was a tour you gave us back in 2007 or 8. Yeah, I'm just glad you're here. I didn't know you were coming. So great tour. Although I got to say, Mac Cross, I'm going to tease Mac about this. Mac looks like, what? Yeah, you aren't serious. And then recently, Jackson Hughes and Price Cameron hosted us at their latest industrial development with the current class. Okay. Same with our part-time lecturers. Okay. The amount of time that they devote to lectures with very little compensation for it have always been greatly appreciated. Dan Ford's being one who's doing it right now. I know the guys, and I've been there myself, I've done this. You don't do it for the money. You do it for the love of doing it for the students. Okay. I'll especially miss the practicums, the national competitions. So kudos to Kim, Kyle, Reed. You did well in the Colvin case study. We had another team of students who did well in the Colvin case study a few years back, 2017. Dr. Buckman's MIT case study class did a phenomenal job. They were a finalist. They were all set to go to New York City. COVID broke out. They never got to present. Great team and a great project. And most importantly, I'm going to miss Amy. Chandler, I'm going to miss you too. Chandler was one of the best and brightest. I mean, amazing work ethic. Still can't forget those early days when you were the only female in the class. Amy, with 3 degrees from Clemson, including 2 master's degrees, a career spanning approximately 15 years at Tiger U, all the hard work and your exceptional organizational skills, Clemson should truly elevate you to sainthood. So, truly 2 of the best and brightest we've had. Okay. Special thank you also to John Gaber. John had to leave tonight, but John was truly a breath of fresh air when he became our department chair. And he's done a great job through some very tough times. Okay. All right, students, here we go. This is all directed at you and also the young alums here. Okay? All right. Okay. These are lessons I've learned. Gus, are they all making fun of you? Yeah. Here's a guy. He went through the Naval Academy. And, you know, they have an honor code, but what's he doing? Okay. All right. Lesson number 1. Giving back and having a sense of empathy. The real estate profession sometimes can be a very unforgiving field, and developers are often maligned. Occasionally it's justified, but many times it is not. However, as successful real estate professionals, you will definitely be under a lot of scrutiny, and if things turn out as you hope they will, you're going to be in a position to give back. One thing I've realized about the successful folks in this business is they have a strong sense of empathy. It is empathy about their employees. They care about their employees, their stakeholders, and the community. However, let's even look at it a little deeper. What empathy really means is questioning your preconceived ideas and discarding what you think is true in order to learn what is true. In other words, take a harder look at the disadvantaged and those in need. Okay? As the next generation of real estate professionals, there are going to be tremendous opportunities ahead of you in this ever-changing, exciting field. However, this is where Terry always liked to bring out his wallet. Keep your priorities in order, especially greed. Okay? Don't try to take that last dollar on the table. Okay? Get involved in a nonprofit, volunteer for a civic board or a community organization, always give back. Okay? If money's tight early in your career, that's okay because there's going to be numerous opportunities to volunteer and learn. You'll feel better about yourself and you're helping make a difference. Confidence, but not arrogance. John Williams with Post Properties exuded confidence and used a term that caught my attention. Abso-damn-lutely. Okay? It's probably not a word that should be used in certain settings, but what a good point of emphasis. Okay? I first saw it when he was quoted in an Atlanta Constitution article whereby a reporter challenged him on whether a particular apartment development was well located and whether it would succeed. His simple reply, abso-damn-lutely. He then went on to explain why, but at the same time the tone was set with self-assurance and confidence. Okay? He didn't use I, though, in the interview. He used we. So he was exuding confidence on behalf of the team. Okay? Optimism. Although I never met Charles Fraser, this is what made him so charismatic. When Harry Frampton was the Fraser speaker in 2007, he said this about Charles. He was always out front. He was charismatic. He was extremely optimistic. You could hit him over the head with a baseball bat, and he would get up, smile at you, and say, let's go to work on that problem. An incredible trait. He was so entertaining. He was fun. For those of us who have been in this business, how many times has it seemed you've gotten hit in the head with a baseball bat? Okay? But to get up, smile, and say, let's go to work on that problem, that's a measure of optimism we should all have. it's not just confidence in ourselves, but also about all those who are working with us. It's a team approach, which leads me to my next lesson, relationships. This comes from Mike McNicholas, who, like so many developers in the South, had many interesting sayings. I've often said for years and years, I'm going to write a journal article. Its title is, "There a direct correlation between crazy developer sayings and success?" Maybe I'll do that one day. Mike often said, "Leave some meat on the bone for everybody." I thought, now Mike's very Irish. I mean, his Notre Dame ties go back generations. So the first time I heard this, I thought, are we like a pack of dogs? Is that what the real estate development profession is like? Yeah, I figured it out. So instead of being that big, bad junkyard dog who eats it all, let the pack share in the dinner so they won't attack you when you're not looking. Okay? It's a small network of professionals in this business if you haven't figured it out. Very small. And it goes down through the architects, the contractors, all the way down to the general laborers. They need to share your success. I took note of the developers during my career where they would get to know as many of the subcontractors as possible. The good developers would bring in barbecue, catered lunches occasionally for everybody on the job site. After all, you're likely to work with them again. Okay? Lesson 5, build your business with a plan for the next economic downturn. This comes from Ron Twilliger when he was the Fraser speaker in 2011. He was saying, be adept and have a counter-cyclical plan for a revenue stream. Do not just rely on development fees, merchant developer profit, or investment fees. Ideally, also work in different asset classes. Russ, to this day, Ron's still your partner. And John, you worked at Trammell Crow when Ron was there, so you can attest to this. Okay. Great leadership. Lesson 6, get to know the community you're living in or developing in. Learn early on about the community's character and culture. Development should always be contextual. Okay. It's what we teach in our curriculum. Obviously, this applies to architecture, but it's much, much more than that too. Develop your projects so that they'll enhance and complement what makes a community distinctive. Okay, but you got to learn that community first. Okay. Furthermore, do not rely just on your architect. This is true for design. Okay. Learn the history, learn the distinguishing characteristics to help guide the design professionals. Seek out the handsome buildings. Handsome structures. They get on me about using handsome when I describe buildings. Number 7, do not continually search for the perfect opportunity. Usually they find you. Okay. It's not about your earnings, but finding your place. All of us have different strengths. Learn what they are and how you can best use them in a career. You're going to face some tough times. And please remember, there will be failures. Okay. All of us in the business have had them. Okay. It's the nature of the real estate profession, but it can also be the most gratifying profession you can be in, except maybe the medical field. Okay. So those challenges and the successes go hand in hand. Last one. Run with the antelopes because there are young lions chasing you. This is another crazy developer saying that has stuck with me over the years. Never forget you've been blessed with knowledge and skills that will enable you to succeed with proper commitment and perseverance. Sometimes that commitment will require you to sprint like an antelope, and I am talking about long, long hours when you'd much rather be out there with your friends at night or working over the weekend. Okay? You may not realize during those times that your commitment is being noticed, but it is. Okay? Many of you current students have been out there working, you've experienced this firsthand, okay? But however, as rigorous as graduate school seems, you'll soon embark on another chapter that will have you running with the antelopes. Those lions typically catch the slower ones trailing the pack. Okay. And I'm going to leave with you a saying that's been attributed to a Nigerian tribesman, but it's oh so true. I conceive that land belongs for use to a vast family, of which many are dead. Few are living, think about that, and countless numbers are still unborn. Okay. So thank you very much, and God bless you.